will your 1,000 of STX tokens worth $40,000 at the end of 2024? Let's revisit the thesis and provide a response to this question. Welcome back. We will start with insights from Satoshi Roundtable event that happened in Dubai recently for top people in crypto. What were they discussing there? Where they are putting the money? Very important for us to understand is because the thing that they're putting the money into will probably run and will probably have a lot of exposure by different people in the industry as well. We'll also go through the current state of Bitcoin Layer 2s, of STX, and I will provide you with my thesis on what exactly I think will happen in the market. Let's actually start with the tweets of this guy. He got 145 views, which is crazy. I was honored to attend Satoshi Roundtable conference recently, and it once again provided to be a pivotal event in the history, a thread. The people. The roundtable brought together the brightest minds to discuss blah blah blah. The themes. There was a significant focus on layer 2 solutions for Bitcoin, which promises to transform what the Bitcoin network is and add tremendously to its value proposition. Teams shared their diverse approaches to solve specific layer 2 scaling solutions. Do you understand what is happening? Largest VCs and people in crypto, the ones with the largest amount of funds, they are throwing the money right now on Bitcoin layer 2s, expecting for it to be a new narrative. What you need to do in order to capitalize on it is stay in the flow where liquidity is going into. It's very, very important. And as you probably know, STX is the layer 2 on Bitcoin. The thesis that I basically have here is STX is basically something that was developed for 4 years already, at least. And what I want to say is that we have to be very, very, very careful with new projects popping up on the market, with teams that were just developing Bitcoin Layer 2 for like 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, and things like that. There will be a bunch of scam, a bunch of vaporware appearing on the marketplace that would try to suck up your liquidity. Because you don't want to put your money into STX, it's 4 billion already, it's not that great, and you just want to put money into something new, and it kind of makes sense as well. But what I have to say is you have to be very, very careful. Most likely only invest in things with strong backers, with teams that were developing this solution for a year plus at least. Because it's Bitcoin Layer 2 is not something you can do in a couple months. It's definitely not something that you can do in a couple months. You have to be very, very careful with these things. On top of that, you kind of can understand all the craziness that is happening on the market. And if you think that people would just throw money into these narratives because influencers, they will be talking about this narrative and this project as well, you might also want to capitalize on the opportunity as well. It's based on how you basically view the market from your end and whether or not you think you'll be able to capitalize on these things as well. One of the interesting things that happened on Satoshi Roundtable is that there was a speech from the founder of STX that I wanted to show you that I was basically showing on my Patreon page as well. Development of the BTC Layer 2 ecosystem. Insights from the co-founder of STX, BTC Layer 2 at the Satoshi Roundtable event. And now we have his speech, right? The Bitcoin Layer 2 session yesterday was the biggest session I've seen here. 5 Bitcoin Layer 2 projects are ready to launch. BitVM is a game changer because you effectively get reliable BTC movement to Layer 2. As far as I know, you can't get tokens of BitVM at this stage. The potential of the Bitcoin Layer 2 ecosystem seems to be 100 billion, not the limit considering the potential for using BTC with Layer 2 and smart contracts. Crazy. Some founders of Bitcoin apps and protocols who couldn't raise rounds even 6 months ago now have oversubscription. Venture investors are looking for early stage deals for Bitcoin Layer 2 and apps. VCs are throwing money into anything connected with Bitcoin Layer 2 and Bitcoin ecosystem. Position yourself properly. Projects in the STX Layer 2 ecosystem are interested in having the Layer 2 bridge operate on the basis of BitVM. Likely, millions in investments will go into further research and development for BitVM. A huge shift in the narrative about BTC. Developers, Layer 1 and Layer 2s, are bringing innovations to the BTC ecosystem. That's huge because liquidity follows the developers. It follows the engineers. And if engineers are choosing to develop on the largest, most secure, most well-known blockchain, this basically means that the liquidity will come as well. What you have to do is to position yourself before that. Bitcoin Layer 2 is likely to become a top category in the last cycle, given the new developers and influx of capital. It's now a race against time. Launch of 3 to 5 new L2s within 6 months. There will be more of them, but a lot of them, they would essentially not be properly engineered projects. They probably would be a bit shady, right? More than 10 in 12 to 18 months. STX continues to lead the market right now, and the Nakamoto upgrade is more important than ever. Nakamoto upgrade is something that is projected to change how things are being transferred on STX, therefore just pump the price of the whole thing like crazy. Bitcoin's dominance in the industry could be bolstered if BTC Layer 2 ecosystems and protocols take off. BTC Layer 2s will absorb a lot of non-working BTC, similar to how ETFs take BTC off the market, and increase demand for BTC. Your BTC becomes more valuable considering the work of Layer 2 developers and what they are pushing forward. That's very, very important because we do have to understand what DeFi is and what DeFi Ponzi's are. And we do have to understand what was the price of Ethereum before DeFi Ponzi's were introduced and what is the price of the Ethereum now and what it was after the DeFi Ponzi's were introduced. The main thing with them is that you basically stake your ETH and you don't want to get your ETH out. Therefore, you're taking your ETH out of the circulation supply. Therefore, price of the ETH surging up. The same thing is projected to happen with BTC. And on top of that, we have Bitcoin ETF. We have boomers putting the money in Bitcoin. It's crazy to me what might happen with the price of this whole thing. I feel FOMO. Like these days, I 100% feel FOMO. I don't have any BTC. I will be scooping several on the dip. If we will be saying a dip and if the current pump will prove as a bull trap. The BTC giant is waking up. I am incredibly excited about this future. I'm glad to be able to contribute to these changes. The BTC Layer 2 season is real and is happening right now. Imagine what a hero. Co-founder of STX was on Satoshi Roundtable event. He was working hard for 5 years and right now he's getting the recognition. Right now the ecosystem is top 1 in all Bitcoin Layer 2s. And institutions, they are very, very excited about STX as well. It's very important to understand what is happening. It's very important to understand how much money are actually being thrown into BTC Layer 2 ecosystem. I don't think we will essentially have like a large surge of these things in the upcoming several months, but I do think that probably to the end of the year and start of the next one, they will just go like crazy. So you would probably have a plenty of time to accumulate at this stage. I do think we might go lower. I'm not buying myself currently at this stage, despite the fact I do have some exposure to Alex and Welsh ecosystem, but not the level of the exposure that I would want to have, obviously. We do also have quite a lot of recognition from like largest players on the market. We basically have this article from OKX Ventures speaking about different layer 2s on BTC. They are focusing on B2, but they're also talking about Merlin Chain and others as well. The main question is what my thesis is, how I think you can capitalize on the opportunity the most and what I think will happen. I do believe there will be a lot of layer 2 solutions for BTC this year and most of them might not essentially actually work. Or there might be some bridges from Bitcoin assets to Ethereum Layer 2s and transactions that would essentially be in Ethereum and they will not be registered in Layer 1 of BTC, which is basically BTC itself. And I do believe that some of the liquidity will fly out from STX ecosystem into these new things. And then over time, once people would basically be figuring out that this is something shady, this is probably something that's not working and things like that, they will be sending the liquidity from these L2s back into something that works, into something that's, not that sexy, something that's quite boring by itself, but this is where the money are. If something is boring, this is where the money are. That's number one rule in life. So they would essentially be sending the liquidity from these shady layer 2s back to STX, and therefore I think that STX would do very, very well. I think each and every dip on STX and in STX ecosystem on this market is a blessing, and you should essentially take advantage of it. This is what I think will happen. And the main reason for that is just because STX, they have tremendous advantage in comparison to each and every other layer 2s. And the main reason for that is the fact that they basically were developing for 5 years already. And all these new layer 2s, they like as max, They were developed from the summer of 2023, which is very, very low amount of time to be able to deliver something properly. And to deliver a proper layer 2 on BTC, you would probably need a larger teams. You would probably need engineering processes. You would probably need project managers, DevOps, QA specialists. It's not something that you would probably be able to do within a team of 4, 5, 6 people. And if you have a larger team, you would want to have a larger amount of investments. You would want to have engineering processes internally. You would want to have the whole thing set up properly. And the main thing that counters this happening is the message from the co-founder of STX. Some founders of Bitcoin apps and protocols who couldn't raise rounds even 6 months ago. If they couldn't raise rounds 6 months ago, they could not be developing through all this time with proper teams, with proper processes. And even speaking of development companies, you would still need time for the transformation, even after you fundraise. Like right now, they are fundraising. Maybe from the start of the year, maybe from the end of the previous one, they are fundraising, but it's still 2 to 3 months only. If you fundraise, if you are extending your development team, you need to hire, you need to set up processes, you need to set up task boards, you need to set up development methodology, you need to set up project managers and tech leads in order to properly develop the solution. You need to set up roadmaps and plans according to which you would actually be working. You need to set up test environments. You need to set up CI/CD environments. It's a whole bunch of work that requires expertise from different specialists, companies that are not using the help of third-party companies like ours, for example. They won't be able to set up these things in 2 to 3 months. That's why in here I'm betting on the players who were on the marketplace already for quite some time, because these things, they do not happen in no time, in 1 month, in 2 months. It's actually a crazy complex, innovative engineering by itself. And that's why I'm saying that VCs are pouring funds into these things right now, but most likely they would essentially be able to push certain version of the products closer to the end of this year. And that's a very, very optimistic time frame, and probably somewhere at the start and maybe even mid of next year, 2025. That's something very, very important to understand. You just need to read the information by yourself and understand what is happening and understand what is the craziness with all these layer 2s, and chill, focus, and wait. The other interesting thing that we currently have is Merlin Chain. I don't know if Merlin Chain is a scam or not. The main question that I have is that if something bad will happen with a centralized bridge that holds how much at this stage? 600 million, 700 million in assets in BTC ecosystem, layer 1 assets like BRC20s, NFTs, bitmaps, and things like that. It would be just so crazy for this space. I think ordinals and then BTC ecosystem and layer 2s, they will die out at least till the end of the year, if essentially something will happen with these funds. Very, very risky and very, very interesting at the same time. What will happen? We obviously have some positives, that the dev is the one who was working on BRC420 standard. He is quite successful with the things that he developed in BTC ecosystem already, but time will show, because you can stake currently, but you cannot unstake. And there are some speculations going in terms of transactions essentially happening in Ethereum ecosystem, and essentially you can really, really easily develop layer 2 using Polygon CDK or Cosmos SDK. It's basically a set of tools that you can implement right away. It's like WordPress, and you would have your layer 2 blockchain right away. It's very, very easy, and it's very, very straightforward. That's why it makes it so dangerous. Along with the projects that are just using bridges to bridge BTC assets into the layer 2 that they developed with Polygon CDK that they can develop in 2 weeks. And then they're stating that they have a Bitcoin layer 2 with transactions actually being transferred in Ethereum blockchain and not in BTC blockchain, right? Very, very interesting. Some words on stacks and some things I wanted to mention from my end, right? So we had like a 2x from recent lows, and we had a 2x on 2 billion market cap token. Right now, it's about 4 billion at this stage. So it's quite large at this stage, but essentially, I do think we might be seeing your thousand stacks tokens turning in value into $40,000. that would pretty much be somewhere around 1.5x from here, 1.75. Essentially, it would be somewhere from 15 to 17x's from here on the market cap of STX. And I do follow my thesis here on thinking that something boring, something that everyone knew from the beginning, that there is STX and they could have put money into STX at $1 and $2 and $3, but they were deciding to chase the shiny object, that's new layer 2s that were going down, that were scamming, things like that, and STX just stayed there. And it just pushed forward with all the developments and things. It's essentially what I think is going to happen. Very, very closely to what I think is going to happen. And interesting thing for us to check out is what's the potential? Why I'm saying that like 4 billion market cap token is going to be like how much? 40 billion, 50 billion, 60 billion by the end of this year? What type of bullshit this is, right? And I just want to do an easy exercise from my end, right? So with Ethereum L2s, with top 5 of them, we see that the first one basically holds around 60% of the market cap. And we have some alternatives at this stage, but last cycle, for example, we had Matic as only one alternative. We had IMAX and things like that, but they were very, very early in terms of the market cap and in terms of the things that they were actually developing. So speaking, if we would essentially sum up the market cap of all the things, right? 9 billion for Matic, 4 billion IMAX, 3.5 Optimism, 2.5 Arbitrum, 2.5 Mantle, would essentially get somewhere around 20 billion in terms of the top Ethereum Layer 2's market caps, right? STX currently is at about 4 billion. So it's 5x for STX essentially to reach the same market cap. On top of that, we basically have difference between the market cap of Ethereum and BTC, which we can easily count as well, which is 3x. And then we multiply 3x by 5x and we get 15x. Exactly the number that I mentioned initially, right? And on top of that, we do also expect the liquidity of the market to increase closer to the end of this year and start of the next one as well. With the ETF, with retail coming in, there is also 5 to 6x multiplier on top of that. I will not be doing that multiplication currently now, and I will be not telling you that STX is going to go to hundreds of billions in market cap, but that's something interesting to discover as well by yourself. Several things I wanted to mention about STX ecosystem as well. If you're following my channel, you would know that in order to get exposure to the ecosystem, you would want to have the main token of the ecosystem, which is STX in our case, a DEX, a launchpad, a staking protocol, lending protocol, and a meme coin. I'm on DeFi Llama currently, and I basically clicked the ecosystem of STX. We have Alex Labs, we have Staking DAO, we have Arcadico, we also do have Welsh as a meme coin on the chain as well. We can see that Alex is a DEX with TVL of only 67 million at this stage. Crazy potential how early we are actually. We do have Arcadico, which is called CDP, but basically it's a lending protocol. So you lock up your stacks, you get stable coins in the ecosystem of stacks. You can essentially do some things in the ecosystem of stacks. You can either buy meme coins, you can either just buy more stacks and stake more stacks and just have it as this never-ending wheel in the ecosystem, right? So Alex Labs is essentially Launchpad and a DEX as well. It's kind of this core project. Their team is just crazy. Like they have a team of killers in terms of people who are working in the company by themselves. I wanted to get into Alex Labs. I believe it's quite pumped at this stage. Yeah, I wanted to get somewhere here, 0.23, but I did not, unfortunately. And it basically surged from 0.06 to 0.4 from the lows of October, November. So personally, I would be waiting for a dip. Maybe it will never come. Maybe I will essentially never enter. But if this rocket will go without me, I will be essentially fine with that. But it's a very, very great project. It's only a 240 million market cap. I'm sure it's going to billions in the bull cycle. I'm actually looking for an entry to this thing. And I would essentially be waiting for a dip if we would essentially be getting one on this project. I think it's a very, very great pick speaking of STX ecosystem because it's basically the main DEX. Like if you want to get exposure to the ecosystem, you just buy main DEX. That's very easy. Next thing is obviously Arcadico. Arcadico is a lending protocol, which makes me quite bullish by itself because they can start this wheel where people just stake the stacks, they get stable coins, they use stable coins to buy more stacks, and they just stake more stacks. And through all this basically circle, the price value of Arcadico just increases and surges up and things like that. It's only 12 million market cap, but it basically done a 10x from the lows of here quite recently in end of November, December as well. I was actually buying at 0.3. So right after the 10x, I was buying on this correction, right? I do think it's going to do very, very well. The founder is working hard on these things too. I actually was talking to the founder on Twitter as well for just asking some questions about the platform as well. I do think it might be a very, very nice pick, even at these levels, because we do also need to understand market caps and the potential of the things that are happening in the ecosystem as well. A lending protocol on STX at 12 million market cap, I think it might do very, very well. Last but not least is a meme coin of the ecosystem. I do actually hold Welsh as well. I was buying at 0.2. So somewhere basically here, 0.02. So I have several X's on my entry currently, but it's essentially a long-term hold for me as well, because I do know that once the ecosystem will pump, degens, they will just buy this token, but it's quite large market cap at this stage already. It's 50 million at this stage. For a meme coin, I would say it's quite large as well, because basically it's 4 times larger than Arcadico, which is lending protocol in the ecosystem, and Welsh is just a meme coin. So in terms of this thing, I would probably do not recommend to get into at these levels. I would probably recommend to wait for a dip and get in somewhere lower as well. Well, still early, still 500x potential from here. 500x is how much? It's like 25 billion? 500x potential. 55 billion. Yeah, it's 25 billion. For Welsh to be 25 billion, yeah, it's just going to be crazy in terms of the ecosystem stacks. If Welsh will be 25 billion, like stacks should be, I don't know, in trillions most likely. So it's going to be crazy for the whole market as well, right? Quite funny. All right, that's basically everything that I wanted to say. I think it's alpha-packed video actually, in terms of the senses and in terms of the things that I mentioned for myself. Please let me know in the comments if you like the content. If you like it, please like and subscribe, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.